After the demise of the Empire's foremost general, I entered into a posthumous marriage with him. To the outside world, I became the pitiful widow, a mere Omega in mourning. Yet, on the day when that distinguished Alpha General was miraculously resurrected, the entire Empire rejoiced in celebration. Only I, amidst the throng, felt a chilling unease creep over me. If he is indeed the true general, then who was the one who entwined with me every night over these past months, kissing me into a stupor? My fingers instinctively pressed against my abdomen, leading me to ponder a far more pressing and life-altering question. Then whose child is growing within me? 1. The news of Qin Ku's miraculous return resonated throughout the bustling streets. As the Empire's foremost general, he had fought valiantly for his country and had risen from the depths of hell, adorned with a multitude of glorious medals. The entire city rejoiced in the resurrection of their hero. Yet, amidst this celebration, I remained the small widow who had been forcibly matched to him. My late husband, who had passed away in serene acceptance, had suddenly returned to life. The prospect of impending retribution loomed large, and my spirits were far from buoyant. Outside the Qin residence, I overheard the guards whispering. I heard that after General Qin's death, the Omega he was engaged to wept so bitterly she fainted multiple times. How pitiful. I can't help but feel that the real victim is that little widow. If the original fiancé hadn't been so obstinate, she wouldn't have been forcibly matched to the general, who now, returned, would surely never marry an inferior Omega. That poor little O will likely be cast aside. Look at that little O. She seems utterly dazed, her eyes red. Ever since she learned the Major was back, she has locked herself in her room. It's quite tragic. If the general doesn't want her, I could take her home. I confined myself within my quarters, not pondering too deeply. For from the moment I caught sight of my resurrected fiancé from afar, my mind had spiraled into chaos. He is the true general. Then who was the one who entangled with me on that fateful night months ago? Slowly, I lowered my gaze, lifted my dress, and peered into the mirror at my slightly protruding belly, contemplating my impending doom. In simpler terms, I was pregnant. However, this child did not seem to belong to the general. 2. For months ago, I had willingly agreed to marry Qin Ku as a widow. My motives were not born from the admiration many Omega held for the esteemed general. At that time, I was on the brink of starvation, having not eaten for several days due to my employer in the slums withholding my wages. Hearing that being a widow for Qin Ku would ensure my survival, I chose this path. Perhaps I had played my cards too recklessly, bringing my former lover back from the dead. I carefully wrapped a silk ribbon around my noticeable abdomen. The faint pink mark of pregnancy on my side had become irritated by the coarse fabric, partially concealed yet undeniably present. It was all rather humiliating, and I wondered when it would come to an end. Just then, a horn blared from outside. I glanced down from the windowsill and spotted a crowd gathered around a stranger who had discreetly exited a vehicle. Emerging from the car was Qin Ku, draped in a long coat, his expression indifferent as he scanned the crowd without a hint of emotion. He was the Empire's most esteemed general, while I was merely the inferior Omega he had been forcibly matched with. With Qin Ku's return, I, as his blemish, faced imminent expulsion. If he were to discover that I carried an illegitimate child, his wrath would likely spell my demise. My eyelashes fluttered, and my fingers instinctively clenched at the hem of my garment. No, he must not find out. With this thought, I tightened the wrap around my abdomen even further. As Qin Ku entered the house amidst a throng of admirers, his gaze immediately fell upon my presence, marked by an air of detachment and indifference. Only upon seeing me did the others realize that an Omega had been forcibly matched to the deceased Qin Ku. One of them shot me a glance and feigned a cold question. "What are you still doing here? Were you not told to leave?" Seizing the opportunity while Qin Ku remained unaware of my identity, this was perhaps the most dignified way for those in high society to discreetly dismiss me. I obediently lowered my eyes. This was fortuitous. At least Qin Ku would remain oblivious to the fact that I had been unfaithful. I could use this as an opportunity to escape. However, just as the scene was unfolding seamlessly, Qin Ku, who had remained silent, suddenly lifted his gaze, fixing it on me with a cold and unfamiliar intensity. "Who is he?" This is Ji Xiaoyu, an inferior Omega." Realizing the ruse was failing, the individual could only muster the courage to speak. "During the time you were presumed dead, this Omega was matched for you. We will have him leave at once." Qin Ku's gaze remained locked on me, unyieldingly indifferent yet penetrating, causing an inexplicable discomfort to wash over me. I silently wondered if he would discern the truth. Just as everyone expected Chin-ku to demand this shameless inferior Omega to leave at once, he unexpectedly shifted his stance. There is no need for him to leave just yet. The speaker hurriedly nodded in agreement. You may not know, but this Omega has not been properly trained. If you have another preference, the individual cast me a sidelong glance. I turned to depart, but as I passed by Chin-ku, a strong hand grasped my waist, pulling me into his embrace. Chin-ku looked down at me, his voice cold as he spoke. The Omega matched for me. If I don't personally train him, who do you expect to do so? In an instant, the room fell into silence. The guests, sensing the tension, discreetly retreated, and the door was shut, leaving only Chin-ku and me, two strangers in an awkward standoff. I attempted to wriggle free from his grasp, but just then, my tightly wrapped abdomen stirred. A sudden dread washed over me. Oh no, little one, you've mistaken your father. Chin-ku's hand remained firmly on my belly. The unmistakable movement of the fetus pulsed through the constricting fabric, transmitting its presence into his palm. Indeed, Chin-ku sensed the unusual motion, and as he attempted to caress it again, he found nothing, his brow furrowing slightly. In that moment, my heart raced with trepidation. I feared I could no longer conceal it. I was on the brink of catastrophe, clinging to a desperate resolve. I heard Chin-ku speak. Why have you suddenly ballooned? I looked up in confusion. What was he implying? Yet, Chin-ku's demeanor shifted. He pressed his lips together with an air of authority. Your belly is moving. Are you hungry? 3. In a bid to prove to him that I was merely hungry, I forced myself to endure the nausea of pregnancy and consumed 3 bowls of rice, 2 bowls of meat dishes, and a large bowl of fish soup in his presence. Chin-ku's expression remained impassive. Wasn't he merely calling me a ball? I held my tongue. After all, I had reciprocated his betrayal. My priority now was to escape. I looked up at him. Aren't you worried I might eat you out of house and home? Chin-ku responded with a calm demeanor, but something seemed to cross his mind, and he managed a rare smile, saying, I can afford it. He was lost in self-satisfaction, completely oblivious to the resentment brewing beneath the surface of my meal. That evening, with an alpha sharing the bed, I dared not loosen the garment wrapped around my belly, hoping he wouldn't unleash his primal instincts upon an inferior Omega. Chin-ku toiled over piles of military affairs in his study until midnight. Upon hearing him step into the room, I tightly shut my eyes, feigning sleep. I clutched the quilt nervously, fearing he might uncover my secret. But at some point, the soothing scent of his alpha pheromones filled the air, effortlessly alleviating my discomfort. My prior vigilance and wariness dissipated entirely. Lying beside Chin-ku, I slipped into a lengthy dream. In the stillness of the night, a blood-soaked stranger, an alpha, burst into the Chin residence, his crimson eyes glistening like a damp specter risen from the abyss, causing my heart to leap. Who are you? The Chin family's password lock can only be deciphered by Chin-ku himself and a select few guards, most of whom I have encountered before. If not one of the guards, could it possibly be Chin-ku himself? A ghost, perhaps? By the time I came to this realization, my body had already succumbed to an overwhelming wave of alpha pheromones, igniting a fervent heat within me. I could only retreat, my voice barely a whisper. Are you truly a ghost? No answer came, only more fervent kisses that rendered me powerless to resist. My responses reduced to soft whimpers. Yet, when I awoke, that lecher had vanished, leaving behind a chaotic scene. Strange black feathers fluttered on the ground, remnants of the night's surreal events that felt like a dream. Yet my body's lingering ache confirmed their reality. What shocked me further was the audacity of that scoundrel to return a second time. Did he think my husband was dead? Very well, I shall remain silent. According to the soldiers who returned with messages, he was as dead as one could be. By the second encounter, I was already with child. As soon as he appeared, I brandished a knife at his throat. The night was too dark for me to see his face clearly. I could only feign bravado. Are you human or ghost? He immediately noticed my slightly protruding belly beneath the covers, his gaze darkening. Your meals must be quite satisfactory. His fingers gripped the knife's edge, causing blood to seep from his wound. You're injured? Let me see, please. I remained vigilant, yet he invaded my space with an assertiveness that sought to pin me down and assess his injuries. In the very moment I plunged the knife into his heart, blood splattering, he retaliated by biting down on my neck, marking me with a savage imprint. Mutually assured destruction was the only phrase that came to mind. My vision began to blur as, In the instant the knife slipped from my grasp, he seized my ear. Consider me a ghost, my darling. You shall never escape me. A ghost? A ghost! I awoke in a cold sweat from the nightmare, biting my lip in terror, only to meet Chinku's brooding gaze. He remained in the act of tucking me in. In a sudden panic, I delivered a sharp slap across his face, leaving a crimson mark. I was rendered speechless by my own impulsive offense, while Chinku lowered his gaze, his dark eyes swirling with inscrutable emotions. He stubbornly inquired, "Where is the ghost?" I stared at him, reluctantly retreating to my corner for self-preservation. "There is no ghost. I merely had a nightmare." Chinku cast his eyes downward, placing a gentle kiss upon my forehead. "The butler has prepared breakfast. Eat while it's hot." Chinku did not linger long before departing. I lowered my head, realizing that the ties of my clothing had loosened, as if someone had undone them. The pregnancy mark on my side appeared to have been forcefully sucked, its hue deepening from pink to a vivid red. Could this be a sign of the fetus's maturity? Now it was even harder to conceal. My mind was in turmoil. I had no appetite for breakfast, but a spoonful of warm porridge eased my discomfort somewhat. Just then I heard commotion outside. It was the guards' voices. "You cannot enter. The general has not requested to see you." An Omega outside declared imperiously, "Let Chinku come out to meet me. I am the fiancé of your general. How many of you dare to stop me?" The din was unbearable, ringing in my ears. I wished to distance myself from Chinku's fiancé entirely. Rising to leave the dining hall, I was spotted by the sharp-eyed Omega. "You must be the Omega who seduced Chinku, a lowly creature from the slums, unable to discern your own position. What business is that of mine?" The mere existence of such a man irked me. The unrestrained pheromones emitted by the Omega caused a pang in my abdomen. Losing my patience, I snapped, "Get lost." The Omega was taken aback by my sudden ferocity. Regaining composure, he could hardly believe he had been humiliated by a lower Omega and raised a hand to strike me, only to be intercepted by a broad figure. "The general is busy and has instructed that no one is to be seen. If you continue to make a scene, you will be dealt with according to military regulations." Faced with no favorable outcome, the Omega huffed and turned to leave. The person in front then turned back, asking, "Are you all right?" I raised my head to see the fair and handsome face of a guard, instantly recognizing him as the young attendant who had once said he wanted to carry me away. Our eyes met and he flushed deeply. "You don't seem well." "It's nothing," I replied, though my mind wandered. Could it be that the person from 3 months ago was him? I bit my lip, slowly considering that if it were Ning Shang, he had both the opportunity and the motive to commit such an act. Although his features bore only a slight resemblance, the darkness of the night made it entirely plausible that I had not seen clearly. I lowered my eyes discreetly, tightening my clothing. If it truly was him, he likely remained unaware of my condition. Even if he did know, I had no intention of carrying the child to term. I could only hope he would assist me in concealing the truth from Chinku. Lost in such thoughts, I wandered the Chin residence until I reached Chinku's study, where I overheard a conversation, learning he was occupied there. "Are you truly considering keeping that Omega? He possesses a leverage over you that you cannot afford to overlook." Chinku did not even raise his eyes. "What do you suggest?" Of course, the man gestured before Chinku, ensure he never has the chance to speak. Suddenly, the man paused. "Chinku, why are you smirking?" Only then did I notice the slight curve of Chinku's lips, subtle yet unsettling in the context. "It's nothing. I just suddenly thought of how my little Omega has been secretly preparing a surprise for me, and it brings me joy." Both the man and I fell into silence. Chinku smirked. "You, a single man without an Omega, would never understand." "Damn." The man threw up his hands in exasperation. "Fine, your pretty little treasure is off limits. I'm superfluous, is that acceptable?" Silently, I departed, feeling a chill creep down my spine. Leverage? What could I possibly hold over Chinku? If I truly had any leverage, I would have long since secured my release from him. Currently, my own life was firmly in Chinku's grasp. Moreover, how could I not comprehend his words? What sort of surprise could I offer? A surprise of betrayal? Was that why he smirked so creepily during discussions of murder? Surely, that lecher could not be Chinku himself? He could take pleasure in my pregnancy, but not to that twisted extent, could he? I shook my head. The notion seemed outrageously absurd, yet it lingered in my mind, amplifying with each moment. It could not be him. I resolved to seek confirmation myself. Thus, I adopted the same strategy as the previous night, feigning sleep to deceive Chinku and set my plan in motion. However, the alpha pheromones he exuded were so intoxicating that I slept soundly until dawn. Fortunately, when morning arrived, Chinku had yet to awaken. I turned to gaze at the undeniably handsome alpha beside me. His brow was strikingly prominent, and his features were exquisite, bathed in the soft light of the morning, making him all the more alluring. I swallowed hard, slowly lifting his shirt to inspect the area over his heart. It was pristine and unblemished, devoid of any trace of a wound. Indeed, it was not Chinku. Yet, for reasons unknown, I felt a sense of relief mingled with disappointment. Just as I was about to cover my clothes, Chinku beneath me seemed startled, awakening to catch me in the act of my impudent behavior. "What are you doing?" His cold gaze pinned me in place, rendering me speechless with anxiety. The disheveled bedding sprawled on the floor, and the corners of my eyes tinged with a vivid crimson. With a single hand, Chinku hurled me back beneath him. "Ah!" He seized my flailing hands, binding them to the headboard, though his tone softened unconsciously. "Don't you have anything to say to me right now? Are you afraid of me? Perhaps because you've been thinking about something?" His gentle breath brushed against my ear, jolting me. "I don't know anything," I blurted out, only to realize that Chinku's inquiry was not directed toward that. Yet, what could I possibly have to discuss with him? I stared at him blankly, momentarily perplexed. "What is it you wish to know?" We were so close that my nose nearly brushed against his thick eyelashes, and I couldn't help but feel a pang of panic. Did he sense something? Under his intense gaze, I averted my eyes in distress. Clutching the bedding tightly, I murmured, "I have nothing to tell you." My heart raced with trepidation, hoping to evade this predicament. But such a clumsy lie was hardly capable of deceiving Chinku's discerning eyes. Before I could finish my thought, "Is that so?" His fingers deftly pinched my lips, lifting them slightly as he raised an eyebrow. "If you have nothing to say, then why are you so flustered?" Chinku inched closer, his gaze settling on my collarbone. "Darling, are you so anxious because you've done something to wrong me? Or are you merely trying to entice me?" He restrained my hands, tying them in a delicate bow. His fingers, tracing down my chin, gradually descended, parting my clothing along the way. "Now, be a good girl and spread your legs. I'm not going to bite." I dared not resist too fervently, holding my breath as my throat quivered with each of his movements. Just a slight further push, and Chinku would be able to glimpse the burgeoning swell beneath my garments. Yet, at that critical moment, General, a guard burst into the room, interrupting his advances. Chinku frowned in displeasure, his fingers halting mere millimeters from my abdomen. "What is it?" The guard, having stumbled upon an inappropriate scene, hastily bowed his head. "The doctor summoned by the higher-ups has arrived for you, General." I understood little of the political machinations at play, opting to lower my gaze and remain an unassuming bystander. Chinku let out a cold laugh, slowly retracting his hand. "Ah, they truly care about my safe return, it seems. I've inadvertently displeased some individuals." The atmosphere in the room grew tense, with no one daring to breathe loudly. As Chinku prepared to leave, he suddenly turned back to me, causing my heart to race. His brow furrowed, his gaze fixed on my belly. "You've eaten too much yesterday. Your stomach is still quite distended. Tomorrow, I'll have a doctor specialized in omega care take a look at you to see if there's any indigestion." Was it my fault for eating too much? My anxiety tightened my grip on the bedding. If the doctor were to see my belly, it would be akin to running down the street naked with the news of my pregnancy. I lowered my eyes, at a loss for how to convey my current feelings. Damn it, would someone truly care if I were to perish quickly? Once Chinku finally departed, I managed to free my hands and turned to the nearby guard. "Could you please fetch guard Ning for me?" Ning Shang arrived in a flurry, his forehead still glistening with sweat. "Did you call for me?" Concealing my reddened wrists, I got straight to the point. "Young guard, do you have feelings for me?" Ning Shang's face flushed. Yes, I do." So that was it. He was the only one bold enough to act on such feelings. Ning Shang, fearing my anger, scratched his head nervously. "I just secretly like you. I want to let the general know." I decided to lay everything bare, throwing off the bedding. The loose fabric slipped away, revealing my already protruding belly. Ning Shang's pupils constricted in shock. Chinku has been back for 3 days, right? The child had come unexpectedly, and I was left with no choice but to take a risk. But I'm 3 months pregnant, and I don't want to die at Chinku's hands. Right now, you're the only one who can help me. Ning Shang seemed taken aback by the unexpected news of impending fatherhood, momentarily at a loss. After a brief moment of contemplation, he mumbled, his brow furrowed. A free wife and a baby. Is this my lucky day? I pondered how to make him acknowledge his role as the father, yet I was caught off guard when Ning Shang simply accepted it. What? Nothing. Ning Shang cleared his throat, his face slightly flushed. The general will be delivering a peace speech at noon. I'm here to escort you. Ning Shang left long before Qin Ku returned. Before preparing for his speech, he barged into my room. His expression was far from pleasant as he grasped my chin, questioning, "Are you quite familiar with one of my young guards?" I was aware that my whereabouts were reported to Qin Ku, yet I hadn't anticipated such a strong reaction from him simply for meeting a guard. Which guard are you referring to?
Ning Sen.
Qin Ku gave me no opportunity to deflect. His blunt demeanor pierced through. I've had him reassigned. The housekeeper mentioned that you often forget names, yet he is the only guard you specifically requested to see. So what if I remembered the name of a guard? My eyes narrowed as I met Qin Ku's gaze. Why was he so astute? Did he truly desire my demise? Or was he merely impatient? Furthermore, this entanglement with him was not by my own volition. I retorted angrily, I detest you. Qin Ku was taken aback. You dislike me? His confusion was palpable, his defenses crumbling. You dislike me, do you? I can make you dislike me even more. If you continue to disobey, I'll have someone else train you. Do you know how they make Omega comply? The so-called training did not involve walking but rather sitting atop a thick rope knot, inching forward slowly. A misstep could leave one dizzy and unfocused. He was threatening me both in a good and bad way. I drew my legs together, appearing obedient under his scrutinizing gaze. I'll do as you say. I'm not sure what method Ning Shang employed, but the moment Qin Ku exited, he arranged for a vehicle, executing a clever diversion. Truly, when it comes to snatching a wife, any underhanded tactic can be employed. Without hesitation, I fled with him. Meanwhile, on the podium, Qin Ku was delivering a solemn report on the prolonged losses of war. I propose a peace agreement with the beastmen forest to pursue cooperative development together. After years of conflict, the empire has. At that moment, a figure rushed onto the stage, whispering urgently in Qin Ku's ear, the news exploding like a demonic whisper. General, your wife has run off with someone. Qin Ku, engrossed in his speech, had no habit of ending his address early. Consequently, everyone present was made aware that the general's wife had eloped. The translator, startled, trembled, inadvertently pressing the button for all-channel broadcasting. Thus, he committed the gravest blunder of his career, and half the nation heard the echoing proclamation. General, your wife has run off with someone. General, your wife has run off with someone. General, your wife has run off with someone. The lingering resentment hung in the air for 3 days, its weight palpable and enduring. Startled, I shivered in the vehicle, the chill of the air conditioning causing me to sneeze repeatedly. Noticing my discomfort, Ning Shang offered me a blanket. Brother, is it too cold? I shook my head. It wasn't the physical cold that bothered me but rather the chill within my heart. Qin Ku was indeed furious, resorting to public announcements to hunt me down. A ruthless individual, he would rather publicly acknowledge his humiliation than let me escape. What a villain he was. I mentally noted his pettiness. A spiteful alpha. In the matter of the general's wife running away, the news spread like wildfire throughout the empire in just a few days, stirring up a storm of gossip. Many believed the general would promptly expel his inferior Omega from his life. Yet no one anticipated that the forsaken general would find himself cast aside by his Omega first. I feared that should Qin Ku capture me, he might, in a fit of rage, cast me into the beastman forest, a fate reserved for disobedient Omegas. My dread of beastmen kept me from stepping outside for several days until I heard that Qin Ku's peace treaty had been rejected by the higher-ups, who ordered him to lead his troops away from the residential area. Only then did I dare to peek out from my makeshift nest. Ning Shang brought me a cup of warm water. Brother, please drink some. I lowered my head, taking a small sip while my eyes glistened with unshed tears. Why doesn't your pheromone work? Ning Shang looked slightly perplexed. Brother, perhaps my pheromone level isn't high enough. I'll see if I can find a compatible pheromone. Seeking solace in another alpha's pheromones for my wife? How could I allow our child to call someone else father? My temper was already volatile due to my pregnancy, and I grasped his wrist, pinning him to the ground. Damp and sticky with the scent of arousal, the sweat trickled down to the dry lips of the alpha. Ning Shang instinctively licked his lips. Are you even an alpha? Can you handle this? How could one be so indifferent as to withhold their pheromones? He averted his gaze, appearing somewhat dejected. Brother, my pheromones are not a match for the child. Forcing their release could harm you both. What do you mean? My mind struggled to comprehend, and it took a moment to register. The child isn't yours? The clarity in Ning Shang's eyes revealed a youthful innocence. Huh? Is the child mine? If I call you wife in the middle of the night and steal a kiss, will that lead to pregnancy? Couldn't be him. My alpha was not that foolish. I withdrew my hand, releasing him. I didn't know the child wasn't yours. I'm sorry for using you to escape the Qin family. Ning Shang shook his head. It's all right. You never liked the general, and leaving that den of wolves is for the best. I nodded absent-mindedly, then opened my phone to confirm the appointment for the abortion procedure. On the way to terminate the pregnancy, I stumbled upon the very man who had betrayed me. The strong scent of blood mingled with the potent aroma of arousal emanated from a stranger collapsed in the alley, reminiscent of that fateful night. Upon closer inspection, I recognized his features. He bore a striking resemblance to the lecher who had entangled me in darkness. The clothing he wore was identical to a set in Qin's private wardrobe, a premium brand. He was no ordinary individual. Together with Ning Shang, we hoisted him back to our home. Ning Shang glanced at the unconscious man on the bed and whispered to me, "Brother, he is of half beastman, half human lineage." I was taken aback as I peeled away his blood-soaked clothing, revealing the half-beast, avian-like black and gold feathers adorning his body. Half beastman, half human?
Ning Seng patiently explained.
It means he can reveal his beastman form when weakened. Such lineage is exceedingly rare. I only encountered it during my time at military school. The survival rate for human beastman hybrids is below 5%, and even those that survive often have complications. Given his beastman blood, the government has been actively hunting them. Should we turn him over to the authorities? I hesitated. Not just yet. Ning Shang looked somewhat dejected, tugging at my sleeve. Brother, do you still plan to have the abortion? What did finding this deceitful man have to do with my decision? Though puzzled, I replied yes. Ning Shang's mood seemed to brighten significantly. Just then, the man on the bed, coughing up blood, stirred and protested. No, you cannot terminate the pregnancy. I turned to face this man, who seemed to be clinging to life, and frowned. Why not? He was momentarily at a loss for words. Although he was indeed the child's father, he had been unaware of the child's existence and had never cared for me. Now, he had no standing to dictate terms regarding my pregnancy. After a pause, he finally found a suitable excuse. I know this is our child. Our child is well-behaved and has been good inside you. He must not have caused you any trouble. The most crucial point is he will be born yours, and I will not compete with you for him. Oh, so you simply wish to evade responsibility. I looked up, my expression flat. According to the Omega Protection Regulations and the Joint Declaration on Human-Beast Relations, even if you are a beastman, I could file a lawsuit against you. Do you believe that? The stranger stared at me, momentarily speechless. He pulled me into his embrace with a pained grip. I never said I wouldn't pay child support. I will provide you with nutritional assistance and ensure the best care. I want both my wife and child. Given that inferior omegas were already challenging to conceive, terminating this child would only complicate future pregnancies. Conceiving a child once indicated a strong partner. If I could truly align myself with a powerful beastman, perhaps I could evade Qin Ku for the rest of my life. If he was willing to take responsibility, I had no reason to refuse. Yet, I resolutely shook my head. I am not your wife. Even though I was terrified of Qin Ku as his nominal omega, if I were to continue entangled with 3 alphas after learning he was alive, that would be utterly ungrateful. At least his untimely death had inadvertently saved my life. Somehow, upon hearing my words, the man's expression darkened, and he gritted his teeth, muttering fine. In the next moment, his gaze turned murderous as he glared at Ning Shang. In our household, only Ning Shang was capable of working. However, neither the child nor the wife belonged to him, and I felt it inappropriate to continually burden him. That would be disgraceful. The unknown man, now incapacitated, lay in bed, and mere verbal promises wouldn't suffice to sustain us. Thus, I resolved to venture out to procure some daily necessities. To my dismay, just as I managed to acquire some suppressants, the man pointed at me and shrieked, "You have beastman feathers on you?" Panic surged through me. During this sensitive stage of my pregnancy, I had been nearly glued to that man, and it was inevitable that I had brushed against some of his feathers. The rogue had a penchant for nipping at my vulnerable neck, commanding me to part my legs for his whims. In my distress, I would bite his feathers, only for him to grow more excited. It was unavoidable to have some stray feathers around. Caught in the throes of his outburst, a crowd quickly gathered. He is the beastman who kills our kin? A creature neither human nor beast, thinking he can blend in just because he has a human appearance? It is this filthy bloodline that has caused General Chinku to be severely injured and missing on the front lines, with no news from the military. My son is still out there. Even the passing dogs, emboldened by the crowd, barked insistently. Woof woof woof. My dog De Huang has the keenest nose, personally certifies this bloodline so it cannot be mistaken. An egg came hurtling towards me, followed by several vegetable leaves. The dog sensed not only the hurriedly plucked feathers I had discarded, but also the meager remnants of my bloodline within me. I yearned to escape but was jostled by the throng of people. My abdomen ached painfully. I am not. Please don't. I was pushed unexpectedly, sending me crashing to the ground. Just then, a figure seemed to materialize out of thin air, wrapping around my waist and shielding me from the impact. I gazed at the familiar silhouette before me. He wore the same patched clothing I had mended for that unfamiliar man, yet he was not him. He towered over the stranger, his demeanor even more aloof. The air was thick with two distinct pheromones that sent a shiver through me. Someone nearby was the first to scream, General Chinku? No, he is a beastman. Was that truly Chinku? The unfamiliar man was the sensitive Chinku. The Empire's foremost general was of mixed beastman and human lineage. It felt as if I had stumbled upon a colossal secret that would lead to my demise. Rumors suggested that this general had a rather volatile temper, a fact I had come to appreciate in the days we spent together. Overwhelmed with fear, my legs weakened, and I instinctively turned to flee. Yet, someone swiftly ensnared my waist, their long, powerful fingers resting gently against my slightly protruding abdomen. It was as if a serpent coiled around my midsection, the whispered voice in my ear consuming all my senses. Darling, where do you think you're taking my child? In a daze, I was transported back to that nightmarish evening when the stranger had whispered chillingly into my ear, obscuring my vision with an opaque ribbon, warning me in a measured tone, Darling, you will never escape me. My blurred vision was filled with the sight of black and gold feathers once more. Get out. This was the first statement I made to Chinku upon my return. I am but an inferior Omega. My temple is too small to accommodate such a grand Buddha. The Alpha tugged at my clothing, attempting to draw me into his embrace. Wife, I glared at him with reddened eyes. General, is this role-playing amusing to you? The most infuriating aspect was not his physical advances. It was tolerable to indulge in affectionate moments with the Omega I had found, but the continuous deception and intimidation were unbearable. Even now, seeing him would awaken nightmares that compelled me to rise in the middle of the night. Darling, did you not see my face clearly that night when you cried so desperately? You don't remember me in my true form? Didn't he think I could see him? Was this even coherent? Who could discern their assailant in such a state? Moreover, after being overwhelmed, how could one possibly see? If Chin could truly possess beastman blood, then with their remarkable healing abilities, it would not be difficult for him to recover from the wounds I had inflicted. I curled into myself, disheartened. At that moment, a knock resonated from outside the door. Upon opening it, I was met by government officials. Greetings. We have received reports regarding your concealment of General Chinku and his political identity. The higher-ups are taking this matter very seriously and require the general to accompany us for investigation. A chill gripped my heart, and my voice instinctively tightened. I could not help but glance back at the only person I could trust. Have I done something wrong? Seeing them brandishing firearms at Chinku sent me into a panic. If I had not inadvertently gone out with traces of black feathers on me these past few days, no one would have known I was harboring a beastman at home, nor would they have discovered Chinku's heritage. My feelings for him were not deeply rooted, yet I did not wish for him to meet a tragic end, falling from grace into the mire. I took a step back, positioning myself in front of Chinku. Do you have a warrant for this raid? My back collided with a gentle yet firm presence. The Alpha behind me, indifferent to the crowd, leaned down and tenderly kissed my sensitive gland brought on by my pregnancy. Do not fear. Leave it to me, darling. I am not afraid. Ah, my darling has quite the courage, daring to betray her husband. I was baffled how he could maintain a smile in such a situation. He seemed perpetually confident, resembling the very image of the villain everyone despises. I fear the little one inside me will be frightened. Oh dear, let go. You wicked ghost. I was uncertain how Chinku managed to postpone the investigation. Like a cunning wolf, he ensured I was safely returned to his den, the Qin residence. Subsequently, he summoned a doctor to conduct a prenatal examination. The process was quite comfortable, and I soon found myself drowsy and drifting off to sleep. Upon awakening, I overheard discussions regarding my condition. The doctor's expression was grave: malnutrition with a tendency towards miscarriage, likely due to prolonged external psychological stress.
Kin keskiviikko interjected.
Provide some useful information. The doctor calmly adjusted his glasses. To put it simply, you are on the verge of frightening your omega to death. You are the first alpha I have encountered who has scared his wife to the brink of miscarriage. You are invincible, do you realize that?
Kin keskiviikko.
His countenance darkened considerably. What is so frightening? Do I look terrifying? The doctor sighed suddenly. Do you not notice the heavy, damp aura surrounding you? Especially when you are near your omega. Is there a solution? If you possess even a modicum of conscience, you would allow another alpha to accompany your omega. At the very least, your wife and the child within her would feel a bit more secure.
Kin keskiviikko.
If you suggest another absurd idea, I swear I will end you. Oh dear, his emotions were incredibly unstable. The medical confrontation was terrifying, leaving me momentarily blinded. I fainted once more. Qin Ku had Ning Shang accompany me while he went to face the investigation. Before departing, the chilling gaze he cast left me convinced that once I bore his child, he would undoubtedly wield a sword against anyone who dared threaten us. Oh, the thought of my formidable partner was quite terrifying. Ning Shang was not adept at caring for a pregnant partner, treating me as though I were a child. In his flustered state, he inadvertently transformed into a clumsy, nurturing figure. I could not help but chuckle at the absurdity. Meanwhile, my communication device, which was still lit, suddenly displayed a new message. Darling, if you smile at that man again, once you have given birth, I expect an extra addition to our nightly routine. I was left speechless. It was not that I refused to smile. I simply was not inclined to do so. Qin Ku, observing the footage of the now obedient Omega, lifted his head, spread his legs, and prepared to face the inquiry alone. The haughty upper echelons were in the midst of reading out his alleged crimes. As a lowly beastman hybrid, you masqueraded as a human and ascended to high office with ulterior motives, suspected of collusion. Qin Ku remained composed, not uttering a word. One of the reasons why Qin Ku was so enigmatic and elicited caution was that one could never know how many cards he held in his hand during negotiations. Thus, those judging him proceeded with utmost prudence. They had not anticipated Qin Ku's calm demeanor stemmed from his preoccupation with whether his wife would run off with another alpha, his mind already elsewhere. Should a high-ranking general harbor treasonous thoughts, he would undoubtedly become a formidable enemy to humanity, leading to a struggle for survival. A struggle for survival? At long last, Qin Ku spoke, lifting his gaze with icy resolve. Then you may as well perish. The onlookers murmured in disbelief. Wasn't it agreed that peaceful negotiations would ensue? How could the general resemble a ferocious beast, terrifyingly fierce, as he turned to his wife? Rising to his feet, Qin Ku declared, "For any matters, you ought to consult my father, your superior. After all, the populace is far more intrigued by the youthful indiscretions of their nation's leader than by my identity." Qin Ku, employing a strategy of counterattack, deftly dissolved the crisis surrounding his identity. The dual roles of a nation's political and spiritual leader, both teetering on the edge of controversy, could potentially lead to governmental collapse. The outside world insisted that the figure seen that day was not the true General Qin Ku, for the real Qin Ku had succumbed to injuries, remaining unconscious for a fortnight. Thus, a doppelganger bore the brunt of public scorn for 2 days, until the fervor eventually waned. Upon learning that Qin Ku had returned, I instructed Ning Shang to return home. My concerns were twofold. I feared he might unleash his wrath upon someone, and I recognized that prolonged non-familial AO dependency was detrimental to the fetus's development. Yet, the prospect of Qin Ku's arrival still left me trembling with trepidation. My dear wife, Qin Ku's eyes were red, as he stood outside the door. Do you truly wish to cast me aside? I opened the door, nervously attempting to explain. I suffer from a phobia of imposing figures. This was indeed true, as I harbored an aversion to the formidable strength of beastmen. I would rather endure a lifetime in a remote slum or stand in the darkest corners of a red light district than dwell in the beastman's forest. If it were merely a matter of bearing a child, I could manage temporarily. However, the thought of being irrevocably bound to him was daunting. Qin Ku took my fingers, gently tracing their contours. But you do not fear it, thus you can surely overcome it, correct? Coughing, I acknowledged that beastmen were indeed significantly larger. My cheeks flushed with embarrassment. Was there truly an element of seduction at play? How dare he employ such a tactic to test the resolve of a steadfast Omega? Reluctantly, I acquiesced. Slowly, I crouched down, a rosy hue blooming on my face. But I do fear your kisses. Is that all right? Chin-ku and I returned to meet my mother. I had anticipated a dashing father and a stunning mother, but instead discovered the truth. A father discarded for his seed, and a sharp-tongued mother who seemed ready to wield a knife. The vice leader of the beastman's forest, upon seeing his Omega father, was warmly greeted with a handshake and inquiries about his well-being. I heard your wife has run off with someone else. Congratulations! Upon lowering his gaze, he immediately spotted my 7-month pregnancy. Congratulations. 10 months away on business, and your wife is 7 months along. Chin-ku pressed his lips together, his demeanor frosty. Get lost. My wife returned of her own accord. Moreover, the little one in her womb belongs to me. His father nodded, then grasped my hand with a smirk. Oh dear. What a pity. What leverage do you hold over this tyrant? I felt a twinge of guilt. I had no intention of fleeing. I merely misidentified the father of my child. Despite my fears, they did not undermine the purity of our love. Just as I was about to speak in defense of myself, I heard his Omega exclaim in astonishment, 7 months and you haven't succeeded in running away? How tragic. Was this truly the case? It seemed he did not wish for his own son to fare well. I tugged at Chin-ku's sleeve. Is she your biological mother? He nodded. She ought to be. Out of caution, he added, everyone claimed so after my birth, and he never contested it. How meticulous his phrasing was. At last, I understood the source of Chin-ku's awkward disposition. I caressed my restless belly. Oh, dear child, please do not inherit the traits of your father's lineage. In this household, we shall be the only normal ones. The end of the narrative. Thank you for listening, and until we meet again for the next tale.